Okay. Chapter 2 of 3. Installing Windows, because this is so difficult. If you ever install like DOS or 3.1, this is a piece of cake. So Windows 10 comes in 3 ways to install, either by an optical disk, but that takes like 40 minutes to an hour. You can do it distribution share or image based. So distribution will be like networked, and image will be copying from one drive to another. The oldest way that you can still install Windows is by a DVD boot installation. Like I said, it takes about 40 minutes or so to install. It takes a while. Pretty slow for our standards now. Whereas distribution, you can have it running Windows PE over removable storage, or running over the network, sending the files across the network to install. So the DVD boot install would be like ISO. This would not be ISO. This would be using it like a WIM file, a WIM file. And then you have the image-based, which is the fastest because you can transfer like from one hard drive to another. Windows 10 can be installed in one of 2 ways, either a clean installation where everything gets wiped out, or Inplace, which can break things or be fine depending upon what programs are installed and the configurations and the features that exist. So Inplace can be a risky thing. Sometimes it works just fine, sometimes not. Whereas clean install will wipe everything and start brand new. They recommend Inplace Upgrades. Like when Windows 10 came out, everybody who had Windows got a little notification saying, hey, install Windows 10 through a Windows update. That worked for a while. Actually, the first time it came out, I remember there being news articles of it collapsing on systems. Like if it didn't have enough hard drive space, it would freak out. So you can upgrade, which is an in-place upgrade, migrating your user settings, your files and applications. Again, some applications may not like it and freak out. Others may just work just fine when you upgrade. To get to 10, the oldest system you can have is Windows 7 with Service Pack 1. So anything older than that will not work. Or if you have Windows 8, it has to be 8.1, not Windows 8. Clean installations are the easiest because we don't care what was on the system. We're wiping all that out and starting brand new. If you're migrating users, know that all your users exist in the users folder, and each user has their own directory. You'll need to point that out during the upgrade process. Ideally, before you actually do the operating system upgrade, you're gonna want to get your users off the system using something like the USMT tool, or literally copying the directory that has the users, but it's better to use a tool that'll capture everything, including the hidden files and all other directory settings. You can do an attended installation where where you enter information at the beginning and then let the rest be handled by the system. Activation, because this is Windows, you have to activate. You can't just run it with forever today without a license. This is not Linux. You'll need to do that. If you don't do it after a while, then you'll lose some features, so it kind of bugs you and is annoying until you activate the operating system. You can do this in different ways. The easiest is online, and that's either through using a multiple activation key that you bought, the key management service that you got with your Windows Server, or using Active Directory to manage and control the licenses of the systems that you control. You can use the assessment and deployment kit that Microsoft has to help you run a number of tools over systems to automate the deployment of installing Windows 10 to many systems at once. Will make your life easier as admins. So you can pick and choose the things that you want to run. Like, hey, I want all my users to be migrated, make a the image design, any pre-installation environment, that's Windows PE. Like I said, this creates your Windows image format, or WIM image. This is what you'll use to deploy out to multiple systems. It's kind of like a like if you took a backup, a complete backup of a system. But with the WIM format is used by Windows's tools to send out these images to systems. Kind of like Acronis has their extension for their backups, and Norton has theirs. You know, Microsoft is WIM. Windows PE is a limited version of Windows. It can do a couple of things. It's what you see when you boot a DVD. It is a version of Windows, just really minimized. Yes, you can include post-install. So that's part of that image and configuration designer, where here's Windows and install these other packages along with it. Like I mentioned earlier, the user state migration tool is a tool that that will help you in getting users' profiles off of one box and getting it into another. It puts it all into one file that you can just copy the one file over, rather than moving folders over and making sure you got all the registry entries and everything else that is tied to the one user. Volume activation will help you in doing things like activating Windows and Microsoft Office all at once. Although now that we use Office 365 and it's on the cloud, not necessarily need it for Microsoft Office. And you have some performance and assessment toolkits that go with it. The unattended, that's the one that you run using what's called an answer file. The answer file has all the information needed for the install process. It's in XML format that the installer will read and use everything that's within it to do everything. So like what size of the what should Windows partition size be? What should the name of the computer be? What domain should it be part of? All that kind of stuff. Everything that you would normally do, you would put all that stuff in that answer file, and then it would do it all for you. There are a number of places that setup looks for this answer file. When you run setup, you can do the /unattended argument so that it knows I'm going to run in an unattended way. Here is all the places that the Windows installer looks for an answer file, with the system drive being the very last one. All your answer files are normally cached in the, whenever you see this, by the way, this is a variable for the folder, because sometimes Windows is not installed in C drive Windows. It might be somewhere else. So in order to not assume that it's in one place, you can use this variable format, and Windows will know where it where it itself is installed. Ideally, when you use the answer file, you want to have all the questions answered so you don't bother with it. So it answers everything and does all the work for you. But yes, if some questions are not answered, it will it'll prompt you to say, hey, you need to answer this question because I don't have the answer to it. So here's the basic configuration. There are a number of steps that need to be taken in order to install Windows. So like I said, the partition and format of the disk, where will Windows be installed, any default credentials, the product key, the computer name, and any specific commands during the setup. Right. If you have different systems with different drive sizes, you could leave that question out. And you would have to go to each individual system and touch the boxes. There's offline servicing as well as part of this basic process. So you have a few more items to do. If you've ever seen OOBE, it stands for the out-of-box user experience. It takes over when you do that second restart and it's asking for more things. And that's where things like sysprep come in to help in installing Windows. The sysprep is normally what you use when you have your golden image. You've installed Windows, you set it up just the way you want it, just the way that you want it copied out to many systems. Then you use the sysprep utility to make that image in order to send out to multiple systems. So these configurations will be passed over to sysprep so that when it's time to run the installer, it'll do it all at once. So if you're doing a basic installation, these are all the steps that you have to do. If you're doing it through sysprep, here is what it looks like. Much simpler because you're automating a lot of the process and you're getting it set up ahead of time. The System Image Manager helps you create and modify any answer files used in unattended. It's basically like the repository when the Windows installer looks for where is the answer file and pull that and then use that to answer all the questions. So you can put it out on the network and it'll pull from there. Which is great if you're doing this often and you make updates like what maybe all the systems have a new hard drive, so you want to set that up everywhere. So when it updates, it'll handle all that at once. You know, it helps in the automating process. So here's some answer file settings that you can set up. It's kind of small, but you can see it better if you look at the file yourself. These configuration sets are subsets of files that are required for a particular answer file. So for example, if we're talking about installing service packs, drivers, or other programs, those need to be as part of that configuration set so it knows where to pull from. In an image-based system, it is the fastest because like I said, for image-based, we're gonna take one hard drive that has everything done and we're just gonna make a clone of it and go on from there. And sysprep can be used so that when the system turns on, sysprep will run to change the computer name so it's not the same as the image it cloned from, and do any third-party settings at the end. Yeah, just like I said, we make our golden image. We use sysprep to generalize and prepare it. And then we capture on the destination. We run Windows PE and we send that image over. Sysprep is great to say, like, our computer names will start with company name dash and then a number, and pick a number from this and up. Any specific data that's tied to one computer will be wiped out, like the MAC address. It'll be different for each machine. So Windows don't record the one from the golden image because you'll use a different one. As always, they'll look for the unattended XML answer file in order to run. And there are cleanup actions that it can do at the end. Like, hey, we're at the end, we're gonna generalize our out-of-box experience, and we're gonna shut down the computer when we're completely done. Maybe because we're gonna do this on a Friday night, so that by Monday, all the systems are updated and they're ready to go. Sysprep doesn't work completely out of the box. You need to ensure that the drivers have plug-and-play support on the destination computer. You can't just assume. And it also can reset the activation clock a maximum of 3 times if you're trying to use this as a way to get around using Windows or actually buying a Windows license. Sysprep will only help you up to 3 times. Also, if it's part of a domain, it'll remove the computer from the domain. Sysprep does not like to run on upgraded computers. So here's another argument to use a clean install. And any encrypted files and folders that were encrypted using Windows, like the EFS system, they'll become unreadable because the keys are tied to a user. And since Sysprep generalizes everything, you will lose those files. So warning, if you're thinking about using Sysprep, make sure you don't have anything encrypted there because it will become unreadable. And here's some options that go with using Sysprep, which you can pull from running sysprep/help. DSIM, like I said, it makes that WIM file, and that can hold multiple images, like capturing one partition and restoring it to another. Or you could take an entire partition or just a specific folder. It's a little more nuanced in how you can use it. They can also be compressed, which is great if you have a lot of images. You want to maximize your storage. These files can be mounted to a folder, so you can edit them later. Can't quite do that with a standard image, because then the image doesn't checksum properly. But you can make these changes and not harm the whole file that you'll use to make copies later. And these can be used to automate your process. DSIM is part of command line, so you'll need to use command line syntaxes in order to use it. Here's some options that'll go with it. A few more. Image maintenance, because as you know, updates come out all the time and you want to keep your images up to date whenever you need to re-image a system. You'll definitely need to do that often, making sure that all your device drivers are up to date, your updates are in place, any features that are necessary are running, so on and so forth. Windows PE, which has been talked about, the pre-installation environment. You see it when you run from a Windows ISO or a optical disk. You can use it to mount things like a WIM file. To provision Windows, there is a new tool as part of that kit that you can use to provision not only already installed copies, but new copies. So this is great if you're buying new computers from manufacturers, or you have people bringing in their own devices. And you can add these as packages that'll have to run on those devices. Windows To Go is a portable version of Windows 10, fully functional on a USB, although I don't know how well it'll run running from USB long term. The idea of it really is this, is here, everybody, here's a USB stick, boot to this, and it'll have all the programs and everything you need to connect to us, to the company network, and be able to do everything. You will need a WIM file. The disk has to be at least 25 gigabytes. Obviously, that USB drive can't have any data. You can use BitLocker to encrypt, but then you need to remember that's how you're going to need to unencrypt it later. So you'll need to suspend BitLocker on the destination system if you're running Windows To Go on a USB stick that has BitLocker encrypted. Any questions? Oh, I see some in the chat. When I made a Windows 10 installer, one of the options was Windows 10 single language. You mean like what language? It's probably part of the XML. Okay, I'll stop this recording.